Hey everybody, this is So Many Sequels. We're like a book club, but with movies instead. I'm Josh.
I'm Garrett.
And I'm David.
This week on the show, we're continuing with Brendan Fraser with George of the Jungle, a movie that one Letterboxd user described as having an ending that rivals La La Land.
We also give a short review of the new movie Skinamarink and debate how nostalgia can impact some movies that we see.
Plus, we'll take a look at how this movie performed at the box office. Fraser was big in the 90s, but was he the biggest in 97? We'll find out.
As always, you can find us online on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all over social media. Now, enjoy the show. Oh yeah, you want to talk about Skinamarink?
Yeah.
Man, David, we saw this movie called Skinamarink.
Yeah, you're gonna have to tell me on this.
You know anything about it?
Yeah. Do you know anything about it?
I've seen a poster.
Okay.
Is it this one in the background over here? Right here?
Yes, it looks like a child sitting upside down in a hallway or something like that.
Yeah.
Everything I've heard about it sounds boring.
So you
not for you.
like
I'll say
you don't like Paranormal Activity, right? Because you find it boring.
Don't. It's just the director turning the lights off in the background. Okay, that's not scary.
Okay.
I feel like you would have the same reaction to this particular. I don't want to say too much because it's out now, but I feel like for me it gave me very Paranormal Activity-esque vibe. It's not the same thing. Don't go in thinking it's the same thing because it's not the same thing. But the overall aesthetic of the movie gave me that same kind of Paranormal Activity, grainy, found footage, cheap, but done well for me vibe.
Yeah, you wouldn't like it. I'll just say you would not like it.
Yeah,
you
on a
find
scale
it even more boring than
on a scale of Paranormal Activity to The Conjuring, where does it sit in terms of horror movies?
For you, I think it's beneath Paranormal Activity.
Okay, with Paranormal Activity being, why are we watching this and not Zombieland? And Conjuring being, wow, I didn't know that horror movies could be good. No.
You don't want to be
watching
this.
I've never seen the Blair Witch Project, which I know is sort of the main originator of this whole found footage phenomena.
I found the experience overall nice because we went to our local indie theater here in Tulsa. We went to Circle Cinema. My girlfriend won that poster in the background along with the Terrifier 2 when she pulled an Andrew and got a raffle ticket that won. And she took it from me right before they read the thing, and it was the winning ticket. And I was very happy because I knew I was going to get them, but angry that she won and it wasn't me, but it was very impressive.
Circle Cinema in Tulsa, after a while, just has to get sick of us, specifically you three, just winning all the stuff. I mean, like, there's no.
I won the Oscars pick. Like, Andrew wins all of the trivia all of the time.
If we really stopped and took inventory of your house and Andrew's house, there's no telling how many Circle Cinema winnings you've accumulated over the years.
You're not wrong.
No, so many.
You're not wrong. Yeah, it was a fun experience to watch in the theater, I will say. It's a Shudder original movie. Shudder, the horror-themed niche streaming network.
Okay.
And so they gave it a limited theatrical release, and I'm glad they did. I think it might have been even more creepier at home, but I think it would have been harder for me to pay attention at home. It was a lot easier for me to get drawn into it in the theater with a crowd of people. So
you're not doing homework at the same time,
right? Things that you would never do.
Laundry,
But I'd be tempted to. I had to watch part of it through my fingers. At the end of it, I had crushed my popcorn bag into a lump of coal. It was very scary to me.
I also want to say, while I may not have loved the movie overall, I was very scared. I looked at the back of the people's heads in front of me very frequently.
Yeah. So
But those kinds of movies are easy scares for me.
Yeah.
It's the creepy supernatural, darkness, don't know what's going to happen, even if it isn't necessarily the best well made, that scares me.
Yeah.
See, I don't know what it is for me, but found footage for me somehow removes me a little bit from it. Like, I don't know if that's like, if that makes any sense. Like, I feel like I'm not actually watching a horror movie when it's found footage in a lot of ways. It feels like I'm pulled back even a further step from the realness of it.
Yeah.
And I would have to test that theory out by watching more of them. But that's just trying to articulate it now. That's just kind of how it feels. But
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not what you think of when you think of found footage per se.
Correct.
Like I would say it is. There's like a found footage theme in how it's stylized, but it's not like fourth wall breaking style found footage. It's more like just how it's presented, if that makes any sense.
It's
It's
just
kind of
presented as though it were filmed on an old camera.
it's very artsy in that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah. If you're into niche horror, you should check it out. I feel like it's for people who are like really into subgenres of horror. So check that out. But don't expect mainstream stuff because it's not like that at all.
No, it's not.
But I thought it was cool. It was fun to watch in a theater.
Yeah.
So that's what we've been up to. Let's get into our big topic of the week, though. Big topic of the
Topic
month.
of the month.
Big topic
James,
of a
you wanna go?
lifetime. We're talking about Brendan Fraser, y'all.
Brendan Fraser.
Brendan Fraser continues this February. Last week we talked about Blast from the Past last week, 1999 little flick with Brendan and Alicia Silverstone. This week though, we're talking about, I was trying to say I wanted to find a way to be like a different side of Brendan Fraser, but it's not very different actually.
No.
It's in that same ballpark.
They're very much. They could be companion pieces. These two movies we've watched.
We're talking about George of the Jungle this week, which was David's pick. George of the Jungle came out in 1997, a little bit before Blast from the Past, but after he had wooed crowds with Encino Man and Airplane and all that fun stuff.
Airhead.
Airheads, not Airplane. That was before his acting time, I think.
Also a good movie.
Yeah, separately a good movie. But David, your pick was George of the Jungle. Why? Tell us why you chose this for us.
Honest, and many people will tell you different things, but for me, when I think of Brendan Fraser, I think of George of the Jungle. It's just, I don't know if it must have been the first thing I ever saw him in. It was one of the first times I feel like a movie like appealed to me as like a 7-year-old. Like obviously there was animated films and stuff like that, and I watched those. But it's like, I don't know, it's like the first time like a movie was like, it was like a live action cartoon. And I just remember watching it, I think at my grandparents' house, just over and over and over again. It was exactly 7 to 10-year-old David's humor. And to this day, when Disney Plus came out, this was one of the first things I watched, because I didn't have it on DVD or anything like that, and I had no real way to go back and watch it. So I was like really excited because I don't know, man, it's just something funny about it. The narration, it's one of the best narration uses of narration in film. I to this day think of the line where he says, as they gazed upon Ape Mountain, they looked upward in awe, and they all go, aw. He goes, no, awe, AWE. Ooh, like it's just that made me laugh when I was 9, and it makes me laugh today. I think about that all the time, specifically when I'm writing. I just think about how different inflection can have, can mean a world of difference. But yes, this is definitely still, as we said last week, squarely in Brendan Fraser's golden retriever phase. His himbo-ness is at maximum, and it's funny. It's not like the most sophisticated humor, but it does for what it just nails that sort of like Airplane or Naked Gun, that just sort of like goofy humor. that just works for me. So I love it. Brendan Fraser is, again, super charming, super childlike. It is a very good companion piece for Blast from the Past because, again, he's like torn out of his world and put into San Francisco urban jungle, and all that stuff. I don't know. So that's what I got to say about that.
All right, Garrett, what did you think?
David, you I think it was you that mentioned it. I had never really noticed it, never really thought about it until you kind of pointed out that a lot of his earlier stuff is very similar as far as like fish out of water situation type things. And so that carryover and seeing that last week in Blast from the Past and seeing it this week in George of the Jungle, it's really interesting to see that dynamic. And I think for me, this is one of them I remember vaguely as I'm sitting here seeing this movie in the theater. So I feel like it's an early one that I remember like going to see it. And David, you said live action cartoon. That's exactly what it feels like. His himbo nature. I mean, Brendan Fraser has an 8-pack, man. 8 on them abs. Play the piano on him. You can. He's looking good. But it walked so Scooby-Doo could run. And it just didn't finish across the finish line for me. Like, it knows what it is, and I appreciate it, but it's just not quite good enough to do that for as long as it did, and it's a short movie, right? You give me a 30-minute version of this, and it's like perfect. And so it's just a little too long, but like I see this as what Scooby-Doo modeled itself after, of like being self-aware of itself and leaning into the humor of what it is. And so for that, I really enjoy it. It's just not as good enough, well-rounded to make it from start to finish to where I enjoy it all the way through. It kind of goes in waves.
Josh.
Yeah. I like that the movie knows what it is, right? It's very self-aware in its use of the narrator. David, you said it was one of the best uses of narrator in film. You said that, and I think that is. I'm not gonna fight it. It is.
We haven't done the legwork to figure that out.
We haven't done the research.
It was better than Alicia Silverstone's narration last week on Blast from the Past.
Sure. If you go back and listen to that. But really though, I do think the narrator is like my favorite character in the movie because he's got the best jokes and he gets to help move the story along. My favorite one is when the guy falls off the cliff and he just goes, don't worry, nobody dies in this movie. They only get hurt really, really bad.
Yeah, they get really big boo-boos.
Really big boo-boos, that's it, yeah. That was my favorite joke because it's like, you know what? Okay, fine. Perfect. I'll accept that.
Right.
It just made it even funnier when George gets shot later. I know the whole time going like, well, he's going to be fine. He's allowed to get shot. He's the hero.
And it's great because the narrator goes like, whoa, that was intense.
So the narrator is my favorite character. But outside of that, there was not a lot going for it for me.
Oh my goodness! What?
I'm not. Sorry.
Wow.
I'm not loving.
I'm stunned.
I'm not.
I'm surprised.
It's okay sometimes. It really wears on me. The whatever the type of humor is they're going for, because it's like it veers into grating a little bit. They try a little too hard sometimes. So I don't know about that. And at the point where it's like 45 minutes in the movie or something like that, when basically the jungle time ends and then they're switching to San Francisco, I was like, how is the movie over? Because I feel like I've watched a complete movie at the end of the jungle area, and then I hit the button and I was like, what? There's so much left.
You get more movies.
It felt weird. So I don't know. Brendan does work very well in the role. I'm curious to know why he didn't return for George 2.
That's a movie for Garrett because that's Zachary Levi, I believe, replaces him.
Never have, never will.
I do remember watching it a lot as a kid. I remember an ape named Ape. He's very weird. John Cleese role. Maybe one of the weirder movie endings ever.
Oh, with him singing "My
Yeah.
Way" in Vegas.
Yeah, the ape variety show. Yeah,
Yes.
super weird way for a movie to end. But my ultimate question coming out of this movie is, what was going on? And maybe David, you know this as our resident expert of Disney things. What was going on at the Walt Disney Company that allowed them to release George of the Jungle and Jungle to Jungle in the same year? It's the same movie.
2 years before they released Tarzan.
2 years before they released Tarzan, the
Right.
culmination of this man-ape phenomenon.
David, I'm going to make this even better because you said that George of the Jungle was the first thing that you turned on when Disney Plus became a thing. The first thing that Josh and I turned on whenever was Jungle to Jungle.
This
Yes.
is true, and I forgot
Very-
that.
It was just like, what Jungle to Jungle?
Jungle to Jungle followed very hard upon George of the Jungle as well. I don't know why, but that is a movie that just sticks in my head from like the 90s of Tim Allen and his kid. His kid somehow, Martin Short's in there. It's a fantastic movie for another day. When we do Tim, when we do Septim Allenberg, September, like we will have to look into that.
I don't hate that. Save
We're
that.
gonna
Oh,
Except
God.
Tim
You
Allenberg.
tried too hard, but it was funny.
I like it. I think we can make it work.
We'll have to circle around to his best works. So anyway, yeah, I don't know what was in the water, why they made so many jungle related movies, because
Seriously.
I'm pretty sure it goes beyond just Jungle to Jungle, George of the Jungle, and Tarzan. There's others in there. I don't know. I don't even really know what the full gestation of why they made this movie was, but I mean, the interesting thing. So it's based on a Jay Ward cartoon, and the Jay Ward cartoon universe, whatever you want to call it, is kind of a forgotten time in animation by today's standards. This is the guy who made Rocky and Bullwinkle, Mr. Peabody and Sherman, obviously George the Jungle here, the Fractured Fairy Tales. Like, it was a very specific animation style and animation delivery where it was very like snappy, like Marx Brothers-esque humor, where it was just, joke, 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 right? The interesting thing is they only made 17 episodes of George of the Jungle. So it wasn't like it was like this prolific cartoon that ran for years. They made, it basically ran 1 year and then ran in reruns with just 17 episodes. And I think sort of buoyed by the just the catchy theme song, that Georgia the Jungle, which they use throughout this movie. They have like a soft version that if you listen to the movie, George will be like sad looking, out of the distance, and you'll hear doo, 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 doo. It's like just like a very somber version of George of the Jungle. And
Yeah.
so
used to do that back in the day.
But this was also a time period where they were bringing old cartoons into live action. This was around the same time period as Inspector Gadget. This was around like the same time period as Scooby-Doo and Josie and the Pussycats. And these types of, for whatever reason, the cartoons of the 60s and 70s were being brought to life. And I don't know what in the consciousness of Hollywood was like 60s era, short cartoons. Let's make them adult, or let's make them, live action films. I don't know why that became a need that had to happen, but it did. Yeah. Excuse me. So I don't know, but I love it. This to me also has very much like, it's very Muppet humor. It's very like, it's that level of goofy self-awareness. And I don't know what you guys are talking about, because for me, it's funny the whole way through. I love it.
Well, I'm with Josh. Once they leave the jungle, I am very much not interested anymore.
Oh,
I still enjoy it. I just don't care. Like, I just shut down and am along for the ride at this point.
It's I mean, honestly, it's like we said, it's because you just watched Blast from the Past. It's because you watched almost an identical movie just a week ago, where he's, oh, now I get the fancy clothes. Oh, what is this thing I'm seeing here for the first time? It's all that stuff.
Yeah, but he did it better in Blast from the Past. I will say, one of the underscored performances that I enjoyed was Thomas Hayden Church as Lyle Vandergroot. I thought he was very funny. I thought, while being equally very unlikable.
Oh, he's hilariously unlikable.
Oh yeah, the moment
Uh,
whenever every time when he's like, "Oh, they're probably thinking I'm the most evil jerk that they've ever seen, and they're gonna do something evil to me."
and then
And
they
then they
say
say that exact. It's so
that.
funny because I'm like, yeah,
That is
man, you are a jerk, and something
this
evil
is
should happen to you.
this is a conceit of David's brain that can be squared away for the future. But anytime a narrator or somebody says a line and then somebody basically repeats it, confirming what they thought, like that to me, I love that. When the narrator says, Ursula couldn't believe she was lost in the jungle with the ape man. I can't believe I'm lost in the jungle with an ape man. I love that. I love the characters saying exactly what the narrator just said. I love when he says that because he says, probably I'm a big jerk and they're trying to think of something evil to do to me. And one of them goes, this guy's the biggest jerk. And he goes, we should think of something evil to do with him. Hilarious.
So
Yeah, and
I
and
also
and
like
Thomas
that
Hayden
the
Church is
idea.
hilarious.
Oh yeah, I think
And he
that
never
Ursula is like an early social media influencer, also based on how they
what
set her up. So I feel like this could be a movie they redo in the
what
future and
works
just have this. This look at this, and they're out there just doing this ridiculous stuff,
and
and they get obscured by George of the Jungle.
I think one of the reasons that Lyle becomes so funny is because like they're always checking him. Like he's like being a very American jerk and being like, look, I bring gifts from America, fire. And they're just like constantly like clowning him the whole time. Like it's
Yeah,
not like he's a jerk who gets away with it.
yeah.
Um it does, I'll give it to you. It wraps up kind of silly in the end because like Lyle just kind of like, oh, by the way, Lyle escaped prison and he joined a cult and all this stuff. But to me, yeah, it's them going back. There's an interesting thing for me with this movie, which is Leslie Mann,
Yeah.
who uh is so. I remember as a kid thinking she was so sweet and so likable and such like I was in love with her watching this movie. And she was, I think, the first time that I remember having my having that like thing click in your brain that actors are not who they are in the movie.
Mhm.
Because I remember after loving her in this for so many years, I was like 9 or 10 years old and I watched Big Daddy.
Mm.
And in Big Daddy, she's this huge
Mm.
jerk. She's this like hateful, mean woman. And I remember being like, I was like, Ursula. And I was all excited. I was 9. I'm like, Ursula. And then she's so mean and so awful. And I was like, it was like this thing clicked in my head of like, oh, actors aren't the same in every movie. Because, why would Brendan Fraser didn't help me think that. So it was this awakening that like people could be different. So I credit Leslie Mann and her incredible performances over time
Wow.
with helping me with that. I'm
Best
quite in love with Leslie Mann still. So
best actress snub of 1997.
it's
Leslie
true.
Mann in George of the Jungle. She was really good in it, though. I will say I did enjoy her, and I've also always enjoyed Leslie Mann. She's very fun. I liked how over the top her, or like I was like, there's no way she would be in this much disbelief. Like, come on. He's like, yeah, the talking ape is one thing, but the Jungle Man, like, okay, are you really? You're still fainting? You're fainting?
Mhm.
Come on.
Yeah, it's I've always I do kind of have a desire to go back and watch like a George of the Jungle cartoon because her
I would like
characters in
to
the
see
show,
it.
yeah, her characters in that show, voiced by June Foray, and she's in all those things. She's like Rocky and Bullwinkle and Peabody and Sherman and all that stuff too.
But I also went back and saw that it was based off the. I knew it was based off a cartoon, but I didn't know it was only, 17, 18 episodes long, and so that got me thinking. Yeah, why'd they pull this show out,
Right.
uh, when it barely has any source material to go off of? So it was interesting, but it could just be, like you said, a lot of these shows were getting rebooted, and they were just pulling whatever they could
Whatever they
find.
whatever they
Um,
could.
but it
Yeah.
did work out for them, at least in for this first movie.
I mean, this was successful enough that they greenlit Dudley Do Right with
Right.
with Brendan Fraser again, which I remember as a kid even thinking this seems like a misstep for him.
Well, you mentioned that, and we're not reviewing Dudley Do Right unless our fans vote for it, and you can do
Mhm.
that on all of our social media. Social media, So Many Sequels Pod. You could find more information there. But I watched it before George of the Jungle just because I wanted to
Mhm.
Sometimes it was stuck in my head. And I actually, overall, I think I like Dudley Do Right a little more as an experience. The movie's about the same, but for me, in that one, Alfred Molina as Snidely Whiplash is just a home run. He's so perfect and wonderful every time he's on screen that it's magical. Plus, so is Brendan Fraser, so it's like a perfect. So those two help carry the movie a little more. But this is very similar. They have the same narrator, and it is because it is from that same style. Um, it's kind of interesting that he chose to do those type things.
Yeah.
I don't know. They just see. I
I
guess
was,
maybe he kind of got typecast there again early in his career.
yeah, I
Uh,
wonder, like, because I mean, essentially, Dudley Do Right in some ways is a sequel to George of the Jungle because, yeah, I think it does have that narrator. It does have that same narration bit, doesn't it?
Same guy, yeah, same thing.
And
It's
it's,
the
I mean,
same general
and it's
setup. It's just Dudley Do Right instead of George.
exactly, and Dudley's his own kind of doofus character. Again, saying I think I'm pretty sure a Jay Ward creation.
Yeah.
So it is interesting because like that to me that is the sequel to George of the Jungle, not George of the Jungle 2. Because it's I don't know, they don't bring everybody back, but they at least bring Brendan back, which I always thought was weird as a kid. I was like, he's doing another one of these? Okay.
He gets to show off his physical comedy elements. I think again, this is he is a good looking man. He is really in that himbo stage peak era, I would
I
say.
tell you what,
Again,
I
swinging
don't
from
know.
those cables, it's hard work. I'm gonna have to
I don't
put
know.
that into my workout repertoire. Swinging from a vine.
Yeah. I don't know. And this movie, I think it is pretty quotable. My wife and I say George just lucky, I guess, all the time when things work out. And I still I think about when he's like this, he's like this biggest swing in jungle history or something like very much. It's to me, I don't know. It's nostalgia really does a lot for people. So um I do think it's fascinating. You guys aren't as into it. That's interesting. I figured you guys would love it too.
I loved
And
about half of it.
it'd be the blast from our past. Yeah.
I did.
Oh, yeah. Go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Josh. I
Well,
was
I
just gonna
was.
say, all the apes and some of the other animals. That's all Henson production stuff. That the Jim Henson company made all those.
Nice. They look good. They look great.
Yeah.
No problem with the puppetry at all.
I think that it is interesting to look at this movie in um, the span of Brendan Fraser's career. So this was kind of between him kind of landing on the map with Encino Man, and it is before Blast from the Past, which we talked about last week. So this is kind of in sort of the prime of his, early, like that big rush of Brendan Fraser like every year, basically, he had a new movie out. And we talked about how The Mummy really kind of changed, seemingly at that time, changed the trajectory because for the first time he was being kind of this very traditional hero type as
Yeah,
opposed
Mr.
to
Action Star.
these sort of fish out of water goofballs. So I think it is interesting to look at that. I think that I think he was great. I think honestly,
He's
I've never
great
been.
as George.
He's great as George. He's never boring in the movie.
No,
I
I agree with that.
he's just got that, and I think that he was capable, and he is capable of doing whatever you ask him. I think he's capable of an action movie. He's capable of more adult stuff, and he's capable of leading, something like this, which admittedly is a child's movie. It's a children's movie,
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways. So I think it really is a credit to his career,
Yeah.
the diversity of his work and seeming lack of diversity in his work.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. For me, it goes back to how much of a connection I think people of our age have with Brendan Fraser when it comes to their childhood. And I think
Yeah.
that he has said that on several interviews where people have come up to him and say, you were just a big part of my childhood. And you think about it, I loved as a 7, 8 year old kid, I loved George of the Jungle. I loved Dudley Do Right. I loved Blast from the Past. All of these movies that he was in those, we talk about those influential times from 1999, last week, Blast from the Past, those times in between in those movies that stick with you, and I remember going to the movie theater for this. I remember loving Dudley Do-Right and all of those. So yeah, it's just a very nice childhood connection to a person in those various different parts.
All right. Well, I think that's good enough to put a cap on George of the Jungle. No need to give it a full, critical analysis, I guess.
I don't
Right.
know. We could write a thesis.
I don't know that we could go that deep on it. But,
I don't really have much else to say about it.
It is what it is. It's pretty much, it's about as, it is what it is. But
it's worth a watch.
Yeah, especially for kids. I think kids would like it. And it's a good way to introduce yourself to who Brendan is as an actor. So with that said, how did this movie do commercially, David? How did it perform?
So generally speaking, it was pretty successful. It debuted the weekend of July 18th, 1997, to 16.5 million. It landed in the number 2 spot that weekend, only behind Men in Black, which was in its 3rd week. We've reviewed Men in Black. You can check out our review. Just go through our list of movies. The number 3 that weekend was Contact, followed by Nothing to Lose, which brought in 11 million, and in the number 5 spot, a recent Framed movie, Face Off. If you're still playing Framed out there, Face Off was in its 4th week, bringing 8.9 million. George of the Jungle would go on to make $105 million here in the U.S.
Wow.
It would bring in 69 million from overseas for a worldwide total of 174.4 million.
George just lucky, I guess.
George is lucky, I guess. It was the number 13 movie domestically of 1997, following just behind Batman and Robin. The number 1 movie of 1997, even though it made most of its hay in 1998, was Titanic, which brought in $600 million at the domestic box office, and over I believe over $1 billion worldwide. One of the first movies to cross the $1 billion mark worldwide.
Wow, and it's coming up on its 25th year anniversary. Sounds like
that's true. Might be worth looking into, looking back on.
Maybe
it'd be worth revisiting.
We'll see.
Back to the Titanic.
So the number 2 movie, and you can listen to this gap between number 1 and number 2 of 1997. So this is domestic numbers. Titanic is the number 1 movie of 1997 with $600 million. The number 2 movie with $250 million is Men in Black. So a bit of a gap between.
If it weren't for Titanic,
Men in Black would have ruled it ruled the summer. The number 3 movie that year was The Lost World, Jurassic Park, brought in just under 230 million. Liar Liar with Jim Carrey. At the time, the 90s certified box office gold. Jim Carrey brought in 181 million. And at number 5, Air Force One with Harrison Ford and Gary Oldman brought in $172 million. 97, great year. They also.
When's the last time a movie like Liar Liar cracked the top 5, boys?
It might be 1997.
Probably Yes Man.
I don't know. I could look through that, but I imagine that I don't know. It's been a long time since you've had comedy star mid-budget comedy movies where box office gold, as it were. Big movie. Some other big things that came out that year. Tomorrow Never Dies. We talked about Face Off and Batman and Robin. Scream 2 came out that year. Con Air. Disney's Hercules, Flubber came out that year. This was the year they re-released A New Hope into theaters, the special edition. So yeah, it's a pretty big year, 1997. And that's it. I'll leave it to you. I'll throw it to the letterbox game.
All right. Well, while we start thinking about our guesses for this week's game,
David, you may never get your trophy because I don't know if I'll ever see it again.
That's true. It might just be his now. Let's look over some of the most popular reviews for George of the Jungle. We've got 5 stars. Late 90s Brendan Fraser could slam me into a tree trunk any day. 5 5 stars. The end credit scene with a gorilla voiced by John Cleese singing in Vegas wearing a bedazzled suit is better than all of La La Land.
Oh, facts.
And then finally, 4 stars. Do you ever watch a childhood favorite again and think, oh, this explains the way I am?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with those reviews in mind, what are we going to guess for the Letterboxd community's thoughts on George of the Jungle?
And for the record, we have a new system this year where we get 2 points. You get 2 points if you get a direct hit, 1 point if you just win. David already winning. This is his trophy. I'm just not going to give it to him.
I won the first game. I won the first week, and I am the trophy holder for the year. I'll go, since I went first last week and I got it dead on, I'll go last, and we'll see if that helps.
I'm going to say,
I feel bad winning so much.
I don't think those reviews are indicative of the quality of movie as much as they are the quality of the jokes. So I don't think this movie is going to be very highly reviewed on average. So I'm gonna go in the 2s. And I'm gonna pick 2.5.
Josh has 2.5.
I was gonna go with a 3.1, but I think I'm I'm not gonna say
3.1 guess. Are you sticking with that, Garrett?
Yeah.
Boys, I'm gonna go the other way because
5 even.
Time is on my side. It's a 3.7, I believe. I'm gonna say a 3.7.
Okay.
I swear to God, if he gets it right, we're gonna have to challenge.
If I get it exactly right, I'm gonna
throw out a challenge flag somehow.
Okay, well, I can confirm that we do not have a direct hit this week.
That's good. That makes me feel better.
But I can say that David is not the winner. This movie is a 2.6. That makes me the winner. I pick 2.5.
Dang it.
This movie is a 2.6. And
how could the community betray me like this?
You know, I was gonna go with a 2.7, and then I thought nostalgia, and then I bumped it.
You know, I knew the Letterboxd. I knew the Rotten Tomatoes score was like 56% or 59%, and I knew that the IMDb score was like 6.9. But I was like, the Letterboxd community's on my side here. No. This is a nostalgia movie that people love. 2.6.
The people have spoken.
So rancid insult. You know what? None of these people get to celebrate Brendan Fraser and his comeback. All right, you can all get out.
This is going to be exciting. I feel like this next segment. Wow. Hold on to your butts, friends.
Well, I am on the map now. At least I got a point.
Yeah, Josh got a point.
I'm on the board. Yeah, you better write it down.
Josh wins. Still trailing me, though, even though we've gotten this out.
Well, it's early in the season. We got plenty of time. We're
going to have to come up with a new way of recording these because I got to record wins. And anyway, go ahead.
All right. Well, we got more Brendan Fraser coming up for you this month. Yeah, we got a couple more of our picks.
What are we rated here?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. I totally skipped over.
Get these horrendous ratings that you're going to give out of the way.
I'm gonna go with Letterboxd and pick 2.5. Well, it's the best I can do.
Sickening.
I agree that it's a 2.5 star movie, but it's a 4-star experience.
I don't even know what that means.
I had a lot of fun. It's just not a great movie.
How much homework do you get done during this movie?
0. All my dedication was to Brendan.
Oh my goodness. All right. This is a 4-star movie. This is hilarious. This is, what every movie should aspire to be is George of the Jungle in terms of nailing exactly what you're trying to do.
Your obscenely high review bumps our average up to even 3. So that's
honestly where it should be.
I agree with that. I'm perfectly fine with a 3-star movie. That's a 3-star movie.
Nonsense. All right. Back to what I was saying before. We got more Brendan Fraser coming up for you guys this month. We got more of our picks. Plus, we're going to do a fan pick, but you got to check out our social media to figure out how to do that. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all those. Just search for So Many Sequels or So Many Sequels Pod. I think most of them have pod at the end, but I'm sure you'll find it if you just search for that. So go follow us on there and find out how you can vote for your Brendan Fraser pick that we'll do at the end of the month. Be sure to also check out our Patreon at patreon.com/so many sequels. If you join us there, you can get access to our Discord and hang out with us, talk about movies and play games and just share memes and all kinds of fun stuff. So go join us there on Patreon. We'll see you guys next week with another Brendan Fraser banger.
Banger after banger.